I'm Lethal Dialect, also known as Paul Alry. I'm a rapper from Dublin, do a bit of spoken word and a little bit of acting here and there as well.
The first question I ask most people, Paul, is where did that all start from you? We grew up in Carberry, yeah?
Yeah.
And so what age did you kind of get sucked into the world of hip hop?
I grew up in Carberry and then moved to Blanche, and so both places were quite significant because when I was living in Carberry, it was my older cousin Astrid used to bring me into town, and she lived in Carberry as well, just around the corner from me on Newgrange. And you could walk into town from Carberry, which is one of the great things. And I used to go in with her and our mates and mess around in town. And she used to send me home with a couple of CDs from HMV in the Jervis back in the day, and they would have been the likes of Tupac and Nas and stuff like that. So, I'd say that would have been about 10 or 11. And then when I moved to Blanche, that was quite significant then because they had a youth centre in Blanche that had a studio in it. And I went to school in Decos in Cabra, and yeah, two of the lads that were in school with me lived in Blanche as well. So we'd be getting a bus back with them, and then after school they'd head down to this Ferolga place, and they used to make it for the crack. They used to make a bit of music in the studio, you know, and that was hip hop. And I went in and started messing around with them one day, and that was how I ended up doing it, you know.
Okay, and go back to school there for a minute. Like, you know, was kind of reading with English, like it was kind of word, you know, obviously words are a huge part of your art now, but I mean, was that kind of back at an early age as well, beyond the hip hop, where it was kind of reading from a young, like, did you read a lot?
Yeah, reading was quite a big thing, yeah. There wasn't any arts in the house because, you know, 99% of creativity is pricking around, and in this house, pricking around is not working, and it wouldn't be encouraged, you know. So, but reading always was, and, you know, every Christmas there'd be a pile of books there. And then as soon as my mum and dad found out I had an interest in it, they just kept feeding it, you know. So, it's something that I still do to this day. So yeah, it's like it's one of those things that, you know, we can post rationalize and say I do it because of this and or because of that, and, you know, really I got into hip hop just, it was kind of by accident, but there was always something that attracted me to it. You know, you can post rationalize, as I say, and draw the link between because I read, and so I must have been into the lyrics, but it wasn't really that, you know. I had to be careful not spinning a false narrative. It was more an instinctual thing. It was just something that may have played a small part, but it was other things as well. It was the music. It was you know, with the music behind it and the instrumentation as well. And just that boom bap sound, you know, it's nothing like it.
And then I suppose, yeah, that's interesting because, you know, as you said, the initial kind of attraction is kind of very wide ranging. But what did you take from that initially? Like, what made you go back? I mean, like when you kind of had that first interaction with it. I mean, did you what other kind of music were you listening to at the time? You listened to anything else?
No, that was it. Then as soon as I got that Force Nars album, it was just all hip hop, you know. It was actually only really later on, embarrassingly late, more so with the last album, or the album before the last one. Jesus, I forgot to put another one now. The one before the last one, it was more so the first time I challenged myself to listen to other types of music, because I never really listened to anything else. I'm back in, you know, me late mother's house now, and was just in the spare room the other day going through all the old CDs, and there's not one of them that isn't a hip hop CD, you know. So it was always that. And I think the thing that, as they say, there was loads of things, but I think one of the main things was definitely, you know, I always had a attraction toward the more melancholic artists, you know, the sort of the deep artists. I just never really into pop music, you know. Like, obviously there's a time and place for everything, and you know, when you're out having a few pints, you're not really trying to listen to, well, I probably would, to be fair. Most people aren't trying to listen to, aren't too cerebral. Or when you're in a nightclub, you're certainly not, you know. But for me, it was just the melancholy and the depth, and you know, it was always a bit depressive. I sort of had depression from a fairly young age, a very young age actually, and it was more, it was almost like, not to sound cliche, but it was like a therapy, you know. And you're hearing stuff, you can hear it in the music, that there's just a certain extra element to the music, and you can hear it in it that this fella has went through the mind states I went through, you know, and it's that relatability, and that was therapeutic.
Yeah.
As Damo says, therapeutic.
Yeah, exactly. And in school, was that kind of, was there arts in your school? Was, you know, I suppose, was hip hop part of the scene kind of back then, or was it more sports, or what kind of?
Like all the lads in our areas, hip hop and dance music. That was it, you know. Making it, no, definitely not. Like, it had the odd DJ, you know, loads of DJs, never any artists. And in school as well, it wasn't really, you know, a school of tradesmen more so than artists, you know. And I've come to realise later on, you know, that artists sort of, it's for people who have the privilege of time, you know. And in a lot of areas, you don't have much time. You're in school, and then if you drop out of school, you're straight to work. Or and as I say, you know, art is a lot of messing around, and you're not really afforded that much time to mess around, you know. But yeah, we had a great teacher, Miss Barry, in English, and me and my mate Dan used to do the reading. Well, I don't know if we used to do the reading, but we were doing the reading on this particular day. I know we went on to do the reading, and I'll tell you why, because we had a substitute teacher in one day. And so myself and Dan said, right, we'll have a bit of crack with her. She didn't know us. We continued on reading, but I put on the baritone voice, and Dan went real high. And all the class were in stitches. She obviously didn't know who we were, so she thought that was just our own natural voices. But then Miss Barry came in a couple of days later, and she was like, right, continues on where he's left off, and me and Dan continued on, and in our normal tones. And she was like, no, do the same ones as we're doing last week. I don't know what you're talking about, miss. Do the same ones. So we ended up doing it, the classroom stitches, and she kept that on. Then the next 2 or 3 books we read, me and Dan were putting on them stupid voices, and the class were in stitches. And we do the odd thing, like we'd have little names, little slag names that we'd slag each other with, you know. One of the lads was Bizarre, because he looked a bit like Bizarre out D12. So you'd be reading your book, and the word bizarre would come out, and you'd accentuate that, you know. It was very bizarre, and the class had a rough. But this was all stuff that she embraced, and she never punished us. None of us got detention for it. She encouraged it, and then, you know, we used to be a bit cheeky. We'd be doing English exams, and you'd have to sort of do the anatomy of a poem. And we were sneaking in 2-pack poems rather than the old Sylvia Plath, thinking she wouldn't know any better. But again, she loved it, and she started getting us to bring in 2-pack poems and breaking them down for us. And it was just it was a very groundbreaking way of teaching. Now that I look back on it, because that's the class I talk about, and that's the class I remember to this day.
That's incredible. I mean, I suppose most of the people I've spoken to on this series so far, at least 1 or 2 people they talk about that had such a profound effect on them by, you know, doing something which might have seemed minor at the time, but has a deep, and that Miss Barry seems to have had that there in relation to accepting that, you know, what was poetry to you was as valid as, you know, what poetry was in the school. And it's amazing to get it at that young age.
Absolutely. And she was surprised at how good some of the poetry was as well, because that's the other thing. You can be a bit, you know, sometimes people in art can be a little bit uppity, and, you know, Sylvia Plath is up there, and the likes of 2-pack could be only down there. But it's not the case at all, you know. In fact, she was surprised. I remember on one particular occasion her being surprised by how good one of the poems was, you know. So
And Paulie, then when you started doing the stuff and messing around in Feroiga and kind of, when did the journey to kind of a wider, to your own kind of voice and your own kind of work and your own, exploration, how did that kind of bridge happen for you?
we were down there messing around, and I remember hearing me. See, what was happening was we used to download songs on the internet that we couldn't get anywhere else. So you go up and buy all our CDs and HMV, and it was just certain hip hop you couldn't get over here. They'd only start to import the commercial stuff. So then internet speeds are just about 2008 now. We're getting a bit quicker, you know. It might have been 1G back then. Certainly wasn't on 5G anyway. And internet speeds were, on the rise, and we realised that you could download whole albums of artists that we'd never even heard before, like the likes of Mobb Deep and sort of the more purist, obscure hip hop, which, it was more obscure for a reason, because it was more cerebral and it was less pop. And one of the things that we used to do was go down and download those albums for hours and just almost like young apprentices, just studying the back catalogue and learning all the sort of different styles and mashing that up and eventually coming up with our own, But one of the things artists used to do to promote themselves back then, which was genius really, it was like a guerrilla marketing tactic. You'd go to download a song and it'd be named that song, but it'd be someone else on the instrumental of the song. And some of them are quite good, and you're like, fucking hell, this is quality. Like, this is arguably as good. Some of them are even better than the originals. So you get put on to new artists that way. But then we got the idea, because they had a vocal booth down there. We could download a few instrumentals and have a mess around and do it ourselves, And there was no, as I say, there was no one in the family or anything like that who did art. So I never thought anything of it, This was just messing around. And I recorded a verse over an instrumental and listened back, and I remember just being blown away, not by myself on the track, it was terrible, but being blown away by the idea that, you can leave behind a legacy, and this is something that'll stay behind when you're long gone. And also the idea that, I've gone through so many phases where I turned to certain artists, certain music, and really got me through those points. And then you start thinking I could do the same for what I'm going through. Maybe someone younger to listen to that, and that's sort of how it developed, And then there's loads of little steps along the way, of course, that are just like sort of accidents, coincidences, if you will. And one of them would have been, we used to do stuff with an American accent at the time, because we didn't know any Irish hip hop artists. And then my cousin was managing a pub and managing Eamon Dordan's at the time, and Urban Intelligence were playing, and he says, "Do you want to come in and do your first gig supporting the lads?" And we agreed, and we went in doing American accents over instrumentals, which, if you know Danny McDonald, which you do, and Urban Intelligence, not something you do around them boys, So we got slated, but sort of not slated in a way that deterred us, slated in a way that, well, we can do that as well, and I'll show you, you know what I mean? So that led us then to using our own voices and talking about our own city, and
yeah.
So there was loads of little things like that along the way,
Yeah, we talk a bit about, just for people that don't know, a bit about Urban Intelligence and kind of Danny and what they were kind of doing around that time.
Yeah, so just so far ahead of that time, as I say, Dan had and I was only looking at the Homemade Bombs mixtape inside in the old room, he was the first MC I ever heard using a Dublin accent, and not just using a Dublin accent, but making it sound fucking quality. Like, he'd found his own voice way before anyone else had. Other people are still using Americanisms and stuff like that, and he was just doing it with a Dublin, and it didn't sound the thing that hooked me with it was, and again, going back to that thing of sort of art and privileges, you don't hear their accents an awful lot in a non-caricature form. You know, it's like when we hear their accents on telly, often it's like it's either a gangster or a comedian, and usually when it's a comedian, it's not. He's not, you know, garnering the laughs that he's being laughed at. And these are things you don't even think about, you know. You don't even realise, because even the thought of doing it in a Dublin accent back then was, oh no, you couldn't do that. That'd sound horrible. But why would you think your own accent sounds horrible, you know? But when I heard him doing it, it was like, you know, he was using our own slang, he was using our own accent, and just flowing over a beat immaculately and making it sound fucking cool, you know. And he really, really did. And Andy as well, for real, who was in Urban Intelligence with him. And like, to think they were doing that all those years ago when I was in secondary school is still mind blowing. Because, you know, if you were doing stuff at the level they're doing now, you'd be happy. And to think they were doing it all those years ago is mind blowing, you know.
Yeah, it's actually totally coincidentally last week I was going through my own CDs and I found one of theirs. It's like incredible stuff, you know, and
quality, so good. And you know, they put G.I. and Costello and all on as well, you know. And the lads will tell you the stories better than I would, but there was like Snoop was playing over here, and he walked into Allsea. He might just buying a record or whatever, and he heard Dan on playing, and he was like, who's that with the Dublin accent? And then asked Dan to support him, and Dan ended up supporting Snoop, and then Nas come over and Snoop recommended him to Nas, and just, you know, all those years ago.
No, it was incredible. I mean, we had, you know, through Dean Scurry, we, you know, Dan was involved, as the other lads were, and kind of hit notes with us and kind of went to South Africa and that.
That's right, yeah.
But I suppose beyond just the one thing about Dan and the lads, and he said G.I. and Costello and Andy around that time, was just they didn't know they were groundbreaking. They were just doing what they were doing. So there was an authenticity that wasn't forced. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't. Yeah. So what did that do to you then? So okay, you went and kind of got your cake and kind of, so what happened then for you?
Well, at first, and again, you know, like I said, it's coincidences, and I don't know if I'd be spiritual in the, you know, religious sense of the word, but you know, some of the coincidences that happen, you're like, that's a funny one, you know. And one of them would have been, because the whole purpose of LD50, my first album, was to piss Dan off, because he was at the slating for using an American accent. So I was like, I'll show him. I'll do this album and show him then. And he passed away before I could show him the album, you know.
Yeah.
But it was G.I. who I linked up with. I was trying to find instrumentals, and no one had sent them to me because they'd never heard stuff I've done before, you know. And I met Costello on a bus somewhere, and ended up, he rapped to me, I ended up rapping to him, and then he's in G.I.'s ear going, this fella's quality, you want to get him on a few of your instrumentals, because he was only starting out at the time. And I was looking for someone and a particular sound, and I couldn't find that anywhere, you know, because the lads who kind of could do that sound, they wouldn't send me stuff because they didn't know who I was.
Yeah.
And I ended up going out to Finglas, rapping for G.I., and he produced the whole first album, or not the whole first album, but the vast majority of it. And like you just said there, you know, you don't realise what you're doing is having an impact until way after you were just doing it because it was what you wanted to do. And I think that was the case for LD50 as well, you know, because I put out the third part this year, and it's almost become like a bit of a cult thing. And I had a couple of albums in between where I was messing around with different sounds and different producers and that, and no matter what I did, after the first two albums, people are always saying to me, we need you on them G.I. beats again. You know, I'd get messages nearly every day on Instagram or on Facebook saying, when are you doing that shit with G.I. again? You need to do part 3. And again, like, you know, I definitely took that for granted because G.I. was the first producer I worked with. So I was used to having those beats there. But then, you know, when you do it, and not to be disrespectful towards the other lads I worked with in between, some great producers as well, but just a different sound. But on, you know, when it came to GI, people were always looking for me to get back on them beats, and then when I did this year, you know, that's been my biggest and biggest album in the sense of the plays and the response to it so far, and it's ironically going back to what I was doing at the very start of it, you know. So,
And has like what were you and on the first on the LD50? What were you kind of writing about?
it was writing stuff about old story stuff I'd seen in Cabri, you know. Like listening back now, it's almost, there's a bit of post-traumatic in there, I think. You know what I mean? There's stuff that went on that you didn't even know might have affected you until you listen back, and you're, you know, it's quite insular. It was quite dark, very depressive. It's hard to listen to that first album now, actually, because it puts me back in that mind state, you know, and brings you back to those, to those depths, you know. And it's a great marker. That's one of the great things about albums are you can put them on and it brings you straight back to that time. You know exactly where you are, what you are doing, what you are thinking. And writing sort of stuff on the underbelly of the city, you know, stuff people don't talk about. Stuff you don't really hear in art, especially in Irish art, you know. So yeah, and again, no rhyme or reason for it. Just writing what you wanted to get off your chest, really.
And was there, and because when you're saying they're kind of getting stuff off your chest, was there a catharsis for you? Like you know, you say that you can listen to it back and find yourself back in that headspace. Do you feel that was kind of you working yourself out of something as well?
Oh, definitely, 100%, you know. And I knew that at the time because the whole purpose of the trilogy was to like start off a certain way, and then by the third one, you know, it'll be a more light-hearted album and a more positive album. Now, I was thinking more going from that as a concept, but that kind of happened naturally through just growing up.
Yeah.
I was trying to force the issue, because then when I did try and do part 3 after the second part, which is nearly 10 years ago, I couldn't write that positive album, you know. And even this third album, I didn't set out to write a positive album. I set out to write in the same mind state I wrote the first two in. It just ended up being a little bit more lighthearted because 10 years later, you know, you're a bit more mature. There's more humour in it. I suppose I just don't take things as seriously as I did back then, you know. And even some of the stories that I'm talking about, that, you know, just as mental as some of the stuff I was talking about in the first album, but you're writing from a 30-year-old man. Well, at the time I was writing, I was 30. I'm not 30 now, getting old very quick, but you're writing as a 30-year-old man, and it's coming out in a more having a laugh with it. You know what I mean? Like, some of the situations are actually hilarious, whereas there was not much humour. In fact, there was no humour in the first album, really. It was taking itself very seriously, and I think that's a reflection of where I was then, you know.
And have you seen, I mean, because the middle two, particularly around kind of, because you really spread your wings out musically in relation to like working with a full band, working with, you know, obviously then kind of getting involved with Damien, and there's a huge, really interesting phase there for you where the acting kind of came along, and that must have been really interesting for you from coming from, I just say, such a kind of blinkered space yourself to kind of have this whole other thing broaden out for you. Was that kind of, is that weird or strange or just something that kind of happened?
Yeah, it was weird, and the hip hop heads don't like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hip hop is it's a very insular space, and I don't think many of the LD1, 2 purists like either of those albums. You know, more so 1988 they like it a bit more, but definitely didn't like the Hungry album. You know, and I remember Dan doing a ballad album. To go back to Dan, I remember him doing a ballad album, and all the hip hop heads at the time going, "Oh, he's fucking singing now." So I'm in good company if that's the case, you know. But it was more so for me. It was as I say again, you know, it's easy to post rationalise, but it's sort of I think I just, you know, I didn't want to write something that was like the same as the first two because I thought it was sort of continuing on that mind state in a way. And it wasn't that the music was a reflection of where I was at. And
Yeah.
I think I just wanted to get away from it all a bit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not be pigeonholed. And I was finding it hard to listen to hip hop at that time, you know. And there was personal stuff going on at the time as well, you know. Hip hop was something that was always part of my life, that I was always loved. And then, you know, my ma got sick. She was passing away at the time, certainly at the time of the Hungry album. And it was almost like I was sort of trying to get rid of the old or something like that, you know what I mean? Which looking back on now, it was like, I definitely wouldn't be like, I wouldn't think like that now because, you know, the hip hop, I came back to hip hop, put it that way, you know. Like there was a good while after she passed away, I couldn't even listen to it. I couldn't listen. I don't know what it was. And then one day, I fell in love with it again, you know. And I realised that it was naive of me to think that, you know, you have to sort of disband the old stuff when you're going on to make new stuff. It's all part of you, you know. It's all different phases.
And as well, I suppose, you know, you've been at it for a while now, and you know the actual maintenance of a career, you know, from a basic living point of view, and how do you align that with earning a living? You know what I mean? It's kind of hard. It's a hard road.
Yeah.
You know, I think you're right. You talked a lot there about kind of the privilege of time. You know, the privilege of having that time. How do you kind of manage that, Paulie? Like, or how did you how do you manage to kind of carve out this time for yourself?
Just by working part-time jobs that don't pay very well. That's how it's been, you know. And that you know, has an impact. It's a big sacrifice because, you know, my missus does sort of be looking at me going, you know, like if we're looking to settle down anytime soon, and obviously it's all at the being upended with this situation, but definitely before it, she's sort of gone, and she's always very supportive, you know, because art is in her family, unlike mine, you know. There's artists in her family, and she grew up around it. So she's always been super supportive, but she's sort of looking, going, you know, if you, let's say it takes on average for me 2-3 years to do an album, you know, the last one you started before you were 30 or over 30 now, you know, you're like, where are you at with this? Are you going to do another 2 or 3 years of solid work and sacrificing earning money?
Yeah.
So you have the time to do this. And then for what, you know, it's as I say in the new album, and all you get from Dublin rap is a couple of claps, you know. It's not financially lucrative. And to go back as well, I think part of the albums in the middle were, and I'm still proud of them albums, you know what I mean? I'm not knocking them. But I think part of it was sort of, with the last album, I went back to just writing because that's what I love to do. And writing the music I love to write and not being influenced by anything else. But I think part of the messing around with the band, and which I loved as well, you know, and I'd be open to doing organic stuff again, I'm not knocking it. But that part of that was influenced by trying to make it that little bit more accessible and seeing Damo can go down to a pub in Tralee and play one of his songs and people get it. You can't really go outside the main cities in Ireland with hip hop. And for a good while, even outside, you know, Dublin, maybe Cork and Limerick, like, it's starting to get to the stage where you can go to other places with it now. But that would have had a little subconscious impact, you know what I mean? And I wasn't really happy doing that because I sort of knew I was being influenced ever so slightly, you know, because I never went full property, you know. I'd be the type that would be sent a very accessible, potentially radio friendly tune and write some dark shit on it, so it balances it out a little bit, you know. And partly, as I say, the personal thing, my mum was sick at the time, wanting to show her that no, this can be done, because it was a big worry she always had as well. So, you know, pretty much the whole time I've been doing this, I've been met with resistance, because there is always that thing of, like, you have to live and exist in the real world, and you have to pay rent, and how long can you do this for, you know?
Yeah, it's come up again and again in all the different art forms and all the different people. I mean, like, you know, in this conversation series, I've had chats with playwrights who like will be doing really great work and then going to work in the shoe shop. Do you know what I mean? And I don't think the public get that. I don't think there's an understanding there within the world that, you know, because you release an album does not mean you're making a living out of it.
Yeah, definitely not one that's standing there. I remember working in a coffee shop at the time Cardboard Gangsters came out, and, you know, there was like, it was in the pictures, billboards and pictures and all, and people looking at me like, no, couldn't be. What would you be working here for, you know?
Yeah.
And I'd say, exactly, clearly, like, your man. And again, you know, you can have a role in a film and not enough money in your pocket for a role in a deli, like, and that's the reality of art. In Ireland in particular. And because hip hop even more so, because it's quite insular, you know. Now it's probably the most popular form of music with the youth certainly today, anyway, which isn't really reflected, because we're always a little bit slow on the uptake over in Ireland. You know, it's not being really reflected. You can see it in festivals and that. It's definitely the most popular music form among the youth now. It wasn't the case when I was growing up, which is great, you know. It's getting there, but I think it's still at the stage where it's quite insular. And then the type of stuff I do as well, it's not like a music album. Like, I remember looking at, you know, some of me songwriting artists who are mates of mine, the way they write, and they write like they'd have about 40, 50 ideas for songs, and then they'd narrow it down and put that in an album. I mean, I must be writing, probably with every album, you're probably writing nearly a novel's worth of lyrics, you know, and that takes a lot of time. And it's time that I've chosen over money in a proper career, or in a proper job, because, you know, you're expected to be utilising your brain power for them all the time. So we've sort of worked in jobs, like at the minute I'm in a stockroom. Not great pay, but I have all the time in the world to write, and that's how I got the last album done in 2 years or something, you know. It's because of that. But it's always, the question is always there on the top of your brain, is how long can I maintain that for, you know? Because it's, you know, it's hard not to live even with a normal job nowadays, you know.
And I think particularly kind of like within the music scene, there's very few avenues for funding. Do you know what I mean? There's very few. We've spoken this before. You know, it's not like you can go and apply for funding to record your album. You know.
No, and even the stuff they do, like, you know, the couple of times I did have a look, they want to fund a professional artist, but if you're a professional artist, if I was a professional artist, I wouldn't be looking for the funding, you know. So what defines professional? You have to be earning a certain amount from it, and if I was earning a certain amount from it, I'd be happy with that. I wouldn't be looking for anything else. That'd be just me, because I'm so used to self-funding it, you know. And that's sort of always been the way I've always looked at it, is when the album isn't my biggest album after the last one, I'll stop.
Yeah.
But fucking things keep getting bigger, you know. Like every album, there's that the listens are going up all the time.
Yeah.
So really in two worlds all the time, as the, you know, because I know if I stepped away now, I'd be probably saying, what had I just, you know, but I think it's not sustainable, because especially at the rate it's been going, because I've spent the last 10 years doing it, and it's gotten to the stage now where I'm probably still a Z-list Irish musician, you know. So another 10 years of that just to go up to B or C, you know what I mean? I don't know.
And in relation to, say, you mentioned Cardboard Gangsters there, how did that come about for you?
John had seen one of my music videos, and I did a little bit of, it wasn't even acting, it was like a skit at the start of the video, and he seen it, and he was just like, oh, you can act, I'm putting you in for a role in this film. And Uh, he wanted us to audition and went in and auditioned with Peter Coonan at the time, and which is not a hard man to act. You know what I mean? He's saying something to you, and the way he says it to you, you think he's really fucking saying it to you. So you're reacting to that. Reacting is what I was doing, not acting. And just on the strength of that, John was like, "I put you in this film now," you know. And he's working on a new one now at the minute that I'm in as well, another feature. And that to me now is going to be proper acting, because in that film I wasn't really doing that, you know. It was being me in front of the camera, really. Everyone always says that, you know. Um, and it's more so being comfortable and again reacting to the stuff the lads are saying. But the next one is quite a meaty role, as he says, and so you can tell me after that whether it's any use or not, you know, because I haven't really been tested yet.
And come here, tell me, like, we've worked together a lot in the past over, and one of the big things we did a few years back was you came in here on the residency, but part of that you wanted to kind of work with up and coming artists. Is that still very important to you, Paulie? That kind of sense of younger artists kind of getting opportunity, or younger people getting the opportunity to kind of express themselves?
Yeah, definitely, because like I'd like to say that, you know, I always would have had the sense to never go down a certain road,
Yeah.
but you never really know, you know, because there's intelligent people that go down certain roads as well, and they end up being the best at those roads, which is you know, the unfortunate compromise. So if I hadn't had for Oga there and found that and being hooked on that, you know, who knows? Like I say, I like to think I wouldn't, but
yeah,
you never truly know. And so just being afforded that opportunity, you know, trying to give that to other people is important. And I remember Gav, who runs that studio, and shout out to Gav, because I'd never been to America before, and I went to America with them. And again, I went over there and I bought a lot of hip hop albums I couldn't find over here, and I met people over there that I never would have met. And just even going to America was such a thing that wasn't done, you know, and that was mind blowing. And again, it just perpetuated the love I have for this thing I was doing.
Yeah.
And he said to me, one of the things, he said, if you ever get anywhere like the Late or any of that, he said, just shout out the clubhouse, won't you? Because he said, forever getting fun and cut and stuff like that, because it's very hard to quantify the work they do. Yeah. You can't put it on a spreadsheet and say, well, this is the amount of umplers we saved from lives of crime or from topping themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can't put that down on a piece of paper, but it's what's happening. It's what they're doing. So that to me is like, in a small, I'd love to be able to facilitate it in a bigger way, like have a more permanent role, which we are working on. You know, I was working on it before, then it fell through. Just getting a setup where we were going around and doing hip hop in youth clubs and stuff like that. That to me would be an interesting way of continuing this on, and you know, give me an excuse to fulfill two of my passions, which is hip hop, and also trying to pass that on to the younger generation, and possibly even, you know, cover a couple of bills with it, you know. So
absolutely.
Look, we never know where these things are going to go, you know. I don't think I'm at the stage now. I think it's going to be one of the younger guys coming up who comes through and blows this thing up and ends up touring the States doing domestic Irish hip hop, you know.
And do you think that the relationship with the accent or the areas has changed, Paulie, since you've started?
Definitely, yeah, definitely. Like, I remember we used to listen to Channel U back in the day. We were listening to UK hip hop before anyone was listening to UK hip hop, just as hip hop heads. And people wouldn't listen to the English accent either. They used to slate it. Oh, I can't listen to that shit, you know what I mean? Same thing they said about the Irish accent. And we were a little bit behind the UK, you know, a good bit behind them actually. And it got to the stage then where it's at the stage now where Drake, who's the biggest artist in the world, is doing this mad thing where he's putting on these weird quasi-London accents on his tracks, and he's trying to sound like them, you know. And ironically, I thought that would have had an impact on Ireland, where we'll say, when UK hip hop blowing up, we'll go, oh yeah, you know, that means it. But no, instead of robbing the American accent, some of the Irish lads are now robbing the UK slang and accent, which is like, you know, it's not going to work like that. It has to be us embracing our own culture, our own like idiosyncrasies that we have in Ireland that they don't have anywhere else, and making other people sound like us, making them want to sound like us, you know. And that's you have some of the lads doing that, but you have an awful lot more of the lads realising that and embracing the accent. And
yeah, it's funny because I mean, with the way you're talking there is kind of very much, say, aligned to Damo's journey as well, and kind of him starting it and very, very much so putting his where he's from and his accent as part of his music and letting the rest of the world catch up with that. And I think that's why it's interesting how see obviously for those that don't know, you've kind of, you know, you've played with Damo and supported him and toured with him and kind of take part in the biggest ever mosh pit in the world every Christmas at Vicar Street. But how did that come about? And how's that relationship and how's that affected your kind of your music and maybe your stance on things?
And they've embraced me like Damo's fans do. It's mad because you wouldn't think, like, I mean, I know Damo's dabbled in a bit of hip hop and spoken word and stuff like that, but it's just the accent thing, I think. You know, if they're open enough to listen to Damo singing and they're open enough to hearing some youngler from Dublin rapping, and that's what it is. It boils down to it's an accent thing. Like, you know, if you listen to Masoi and tell me Damien Dempsey can't sing. Yeah. What people mean when they say Damo can't sing is they can't stomach his accent, which is their own accent, which is some, you know, it's a weird post-colonial thing. You know, that you can talk about the psychology for all day, but with me and Damo, it happened there because he done stuff with Urban Intelligence back in the day. He'd done Patience with them, and he was always, you know, always, as I say, dabbling in a bit of hip hop and that. And it was Johnny Boy at the time who produced 1988. He'd said, "Oh, you need to," because he's from Donegal, and he was like, "You had to come in and hear Damo," you know. And I went into Vicar Street. I'd heard Damo before. Sorry, he said you had to come in and hear him live. That was a big thing. So I went to my first gig with him, and was just blown away by it. It was madness. And I remember looking at the support act, and he always had like a local support act, and going, "Just, I reckon he might take a chance and throw us a support slot." Which he did like a year later, you know, and we got him on the album and that. And I was introduced by Johnny. The connection happened through Dean and John Connors, really, you know. Just going with a dip out Malahide with them and getting chatting, and the lads have been saying, "Oh, Paulie," and John is saying, "Oh, Paulie in the new film," and that, and then he goes and listens to it and then asks me to support in Vicar Street, and it just became a thing then, you know.
And come here, I mean, I won't keep it too much longer, but there's a couple of things from that. I mean, you know, Dean Scurry has been behind, you know, he's a kind of a thread that goes through nearly every person that you've spoken about.
He has a finger in every boy.
But yeah, I think also that sense of activism and art, and activism not necessarily in carrying placards, but being an activist by being who you are.
Just doing it, yeah. Just doing it. Dino's a great man for making connections. That's what he does, you know.
Yeah.
And he made an awful lot of connections. Like, he made that connection with myself and Damo, and you know, just I can't even. There's that many of them, you know what I mean? Just people that if you need something done, ask the fella, and he'll know someone
that'll do it.
Who can do it, or who to put you in touch with, you know.
Yeah, just go back there before I let you go in relation to the accent thing or the placement, because I think that's hugely important, and I think it's happened a lot in the last, say, decade in theatre, that there's voices now emerging that are from areas which necessarily wouldn't have been seen on national stages or even on, you know, smaller stages before. And I think, you know, in some ways hip hop and spoken word led that, and you know, in some ways doesn't get, not the credit, but doesn't get spoken about in that way. That the push on, I mean, even something as basic as singing in your own accent or rapping in your own accent about something that happens in your world is a huge stance to take.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, to be fair, like it's you're not your career probably isn't gonna be stunted compared to someone who's adopting the Mid Atlantic twang, and that's just the way it is, you know. Unless somebody gives you the coastline in one of those countries first.
Yeah.
And it's a weird thing, you know. I really don't understand. I never understood it because I had that mentality that the Dublin accent doesn't work when I was about 10, and I got over it fairly quickly. When I heard it being done well, and one of the things that did with the likes of myself, G.I. Costello, and even Damo, one of the things that did was like people that hear us in their accent and say, "Oh, he can't rap," you know what I mean?
Right.
Or they'd hear Damo and say he can't sing. So what that made us do, and even with G.I., like, you know, making beats, or some of them fingers can't make hip hop beats, you know what I mean? It's not a done thing. What that made us do was strive to be world class, like to put in the hours to actually be world class to the point where it's undeniable, you know? Like nobody, and you know, again, it's not being arrogant. This is hard earned confidence, very very hard earned confidence. When I say that, you can't listen to a song of mine and say that I can't rap or that there's no meaning in the lyrics. So you can't listen with G.I.B. and say he's not up there with the greatest hip hop artists. Or you can't listen to Damo and say that guy can't sing. So what they do is say, oh, I don't like it with the accent. You know what I mean? They find another way of sort of bringing it down a peg. And look, part of that is what drives you on, you know, because it's something that it's probably been the biggest fueler for me, you know. And you know, you'd have to ask the other lads,
Yeah.
their opinion on it. But certainly for me, anyway, that's the one thing that's probably led to me, uh, you know, never going to have a lucrative career doing this thing is the same reason why I'm 5 albums in.
Yeah.
You know, so does that compromise, I suppose?
Yeah, but I think, you know, it's a perennial conversation within, say, the arts sector, whatever you want to call it, around access and around, yeah, people being afforded that privilege of space, and not necessarily about time, but just privilege of space within the broader culture to kind of express themselves based upon who they are, rather than trying to kind of dilute that in order to kind of fit into some. You know, I always, in relation to hip hop, and I mean, going back to kind of Danny again, but I mean, the world and Ireland took on, say, you know, the Dubliners, Luke Kelly, you know, going back centuries, the kind of traditional Irish and folk shanno singing of people singing about their own accents, sorry, about their own communities in their own accent. And I'm really interested in the fact that that's being assimilated or taken on, it's fine, but what might be seen as a more raw space isn't. Because the Dubliners sing about very similar stuff that you sing about. I mean, I remember when we did Hypnos together with, you know, Shanno singers, Irish Shanno singers from Donegal. The meeting point there between the rappers and those brilliant people, where they were singing about death, you know, loss, grief, poor communities. So I think it's a very fascinating space culturally.
Absolutely, yeah. Like one of the things people deal with hip hop is they associate with gangsterism.
Yeah.
That's sort of one of the cliches, you know. They go, oh, gangster hip hop, which says more about their understanding of what hip hop is than anything else. And even if it was that, I mean, look at the city we're living in. You know, look at the stuff going on. Like, it's probably like, you know, certain areas are like, not to delve into all of that type of stuff, but the stuff going on in certain areas is absolutely mental. And for somebody to come out of one of those areas doing something positive and talking about stuff they know about,
yeah,
to me is like it's a double plus. A, because, you know, it's an opportunity for them to take a different path, to go down a different road, and B, because it's the therapy thing of, well, they're turning this negative situation into some type of positive. That's a thing that, you know, I think when people turn around and say, oh, the gangsterism and associate with that, which is, as I say, it's you know, a little bit prejudice, frankly, to think that that's what hip hop is, but also it's ignorant, you know, and it overlooks, as I say, even when it did come out taking on that stance, it overlooks what the fucking point of what they're doing is, you know, because we live in, you know, and you know from working in Ballymun as well, like it's a mad time to be alive in Ireland, because you've obviously, I'm talking pre-pandemic, but you've prosperity and you've economic growth, but you've some of the most turbulent and violent times happening in certain places as well, as a backdrop to all of that. And anything that takes youth away from that is a plus. And to negate it and say something like, oh, you know, it's bullshit, like, you know.
Yeah. I'm going to leave it at that. That's a great way to finish, Paulie. And thanks very, very much for taking part in this. And I hope you.
Thanks for the chat.
I hope you enjoy the rest of your confinement.
And you as well.
Yeah, cheers, man. Talk to you soon.
Cheers, Mark. Take it easy.